Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for December 16th of 2023, and currently we have a slight risk for the Florida Peninsula. Threats for today do include a 5% tornado threat, which would issue up to a slight risk by itself. Same with the 15% wind threat, that would be able to issue up to a slight risk by itself, but we're primarily going to be covering the tornado risk. But we will go in depth on the wind risk as well. But we don't really have all that much of a hail threat for today. And then for tomorrow, we do have a slight risk for North Carolina into South Carolina with a fairly large marginal threat that does extend across the Florida Peninsula into southern Virginia, mostly riding along the coast. Threats for tomorrow do include a 2% tornado threat for coastal regions of South Carolina and North Carolina, as well as southern Florida. And then we do have a 15% wind threat with a fairly large 5% hail threat, or 5% wind threat around that, with the driving threat primarily being the damaging wind threat with the secondary tornado threat, but we also don't really have all that much of a hail threat. Then for day 3 outlook, nothing currently issued as far as severe thunderstorms, but we may be able to see some general thunderstorms for parts of Northern California and some of the New England regions. And then for our day 4 to day 8 outlook, we currently don't have anything forecasted. The outlook starting off with excessive rainfall forecast. For today, we do have a slight risk for flash flooding for a very large portion of the Florida Peninsula into the Panhandle, as well as southern Georgia. For tomorrow, we do have a slight risk for flash flooding for South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as well as the New York City region. And then for our day 3 outlook, we do have a slight risk for some of the New England corridor for Maine into New Hampshire, as well as a marginal threat that does extend down into the New York City region, as well as a marginal threat for northern California into parts of southern Oregon. Then we can also take a look at our winter weather outlooks. For today, we aren't really expected to see any heavy snow anywhere in the United States. And then for tomorrow, we are expected to see the possibility of a little bit of heavy snow for a portion of northern Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan. And then for day 3 outlook, we are expected to see that snow pick up as we do have a little bit of a cold front come out of Canada back behind that low pressure system as it rides up into up along the coast and out into the Atlantic Ocean. We will have a little bit of a cold front behind that, and that will bring some snow to the New England corridor and down the Appalachian regions. And then we could also see a little bit of heavy snow for some of the more mountainous regions in eastern California. Taking a look at our weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars and our fronts. We do have that low pressure system that is slowly developing in the Gulf of Mexico and is expected to develop quite rapidly, especially in the low levels, and that's going to be giving us quite a bit of shear. As you can see, very, very strong varying the winds. That's going to give us quite a bit of directional shear. Then we are also expected to have some warm air advection out of the south-southeast. More on that later, and that should also help with instability a little bit. And then for the future progression of this system, it really comes down to how far inland this low pressure system is going to ride. It could either stay more along the coast or it could stay more inland. And if it does stay more inland, it could lead to more widespread rain showers and more long-lasting rain showers, and more of the possibility for flash flooding. However, if it does ride up along the coast, it is going to not really lead to as high as a possibility for heavy rain showers or more long-lasting rain showers ashore. Um, but regardless, we still are expected to see the possibility of quite a bit of flash flooding. If it does ride more inland, we may be able to see some rain showers, possibly get as far eastward or as far westward as past the Appalachians, and possibly even into parts of western Kentucky or eastern Kentucky, into parts of eastern Tennessee, as well as Alabama and West Virginia. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, I'm going to be going over the when and where you should be able to see our rain showers. So starting off with what we're seeing around 8 a.m., or we should actually go to around 1 p.m. at the time of recording this. Um, you can see that we are seeing those rain showers really pick up across the Florida Peninsula, with a little bit more stronger and heavier rain showers towards the south coming out of the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Mexico. Um, that could also harbor the possibility of some severe potential. However, what we are expected to be watching out for severe potential is going to be this broken line of more heavier and much more stronger supercells along a warm front here, and this is going to impact the coast of Florida around 11 p.m. And lead to the possibility of a tornado threat. And then that is going to move into the Orlando region as well as anywhere along the eastern coast here for Orlando, into Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and across the Keys around 1 a.m. And then into the early morning hours around 5 to 6 p.m. We are expected to see a little bit more lingering rain showers for Miami into the Florida area or Florida Key area, and then we are expected to see some more isolated rain showers back behind the warm front as the cold front still tries to catch up. And then as the cold front passes across the Florida peninsula, a lot of those rain showers are going to clear out around 10 a.m. tomorrow. And then we can also take a look at what we are expected to see as far as rainfall for the warm front that is pushing across the Mississippi River Valley and into the Ohio River Valley and eastern half of the United States later today. Um, we are seeing that cold front across the Mississippi River Valley associated with two areas of low pressure. Um, it did kind of seem like we did have another one that was closer to this area of low pressure. But it is doing this weird thing where I think it kind of got slingshot around and shot down to the south here. So we are seeing that turn into more of a shortwave and right along the broader trough. Um, and that is going to be bringing a line of some light to broken rain showers across the Mississippi River Valley, anywhere until around 8 p.m. tomorrow or 8 p.m. tonight, as it moves into the Ohio River Valley and eastern half of the United States. It is going to move into more of the middle Ohio River Valley and into middle Tennessee and Alabama around 3 a.m. and into the early morning hours of tomorrow, and then it is going to be pushing into the eastern half of the United States, eastern Ohio River Valley for Ohio, into eastern Kentucky and into eastern Tennessee around 11 a.m. tomorrow. And this is expected to bring quite a bit of snow. We aren't necessarily expected to see any heavy snow because the WPC doesn't have that area or doesn't have any areas issued for heavy snow. But you can see on our models we are getting quite a bit of heavy snow. However, this is likely going to be much more than what we are actually expected to see for snow. We are expected to see some light snow, but it isn't necessarily expected to be heavy, and it isn't really expected to drop a ton of snow. But we could see some snow for Minnesota into South Dakota and possibly even into Iowa. And then taking a look at our dew points, this is going to be the start of the very deep nitty-gritty of things. I'm going to be going very in-depth on the severe weather forecast from here on out through the rest of the video. So starting off with our dew points, again, as mentioned previously, we are expected to have a warm front and a cold front that is going to come together to form a classic warm sector setup with a warm front ahead and a cold front back behind that, attached to a low pressure system. Um, this warm front is actually going to be the thing that is going to be harboring the threat for severe thunderstorm and is going to be supporting the main convective line. We are expected to see quite a bit of moisture back behind that warm front, with dew points are possibly going to be getting into the low 70s and possibly up to 72. The warm front is going to be able to use some of the moisture and instability back behind it. We will have to look at temperatures for what we are expected for instability. But again, the warm front should be able to use anything back behind it and in the warm sector. That is going to also put a little bit of a cap in place back behind the cold front or back behind the warm front, which is gonna inhibit any convection along the warm front. Taking a look at our temperatures, you can see that we do have some fairly average temperatures. They're not really hot. They're fairly warm and getting down closer to chilly. So overall, we aren't really expected to have a ton of instability with the temperatures that we have. Again, we are expected to see some warm air advection out of the south-southeast, so that will help with instability a little bit. But overall, we are expected to see some fairly average to chilly temperatures that aren't really going to be harboring all that much of a possibility for very strong instability across this region. Um, but again, hopefully temperatures shouldn't be too chilly across the Florida Peninsula. And then we can also take a look at what we are expected to see as far as temperatures across the vast majority of the United States for today into tomorrow. You can see that we do have that cold front and those two low pressure systems. As I did mention previously, they are kind of doing a slingshot thing where we have one low pressure system and another low pressure system. One is kind of just going to like shoot around the other one and go down to the south and right along the broader trough. And with this cold front, we are expected to see some fairly cold air back behind that. With temperatures that are going to be getting into the 30s and possibly even below freezing across the northern central plains in Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wyoming, Colorado, and across the Rockies later tonight because of that cold front. And as that cold front pushes eastward into tomorrow, it should bring some fairly cold air. Where in the night of tomorrow we could see significantly colder temperatures, possibly getting down into the single digits in northern Minnesota and northern North Dakota, and very, very widespread below freezing temperatures. Very, very large portion of the Midwest and the northern central plains into the central plains. And then taking a look at our instability, you can see in the warm sector we are expected to have some fairly good instability with dupe or Cape values are going to be getting into the upper 1000s and into the low 2000s in that warm sector. However, this is mostly going to be offshore and before the low pressure system has made landfall. So with that given information, I do assume that our warm front as it impacts the western coast of Florida and brings our severe thunderstorms and taps into that warm sector. That is probably going to be when we have the greatest potential for tornadoes because the warm front will be able to use the stronger instability offshore in the stronger warm sector where we have those Cape values that are going to be getting into the 1000s. So our greatest tornado threat is probably going to be along the western coast around 11 p.m. And you can see as it moves on to as it moves ashore, you can see Cape values really decrease ahead of the cold front with still ample instability, but we do have a little bit more of a cap in place, and we aren't really expected to see any convection along that cold front. We are expected to see a little bit more isolated rain showers, but nothing really too severe. And then as that cold front pushes out into the Atlantic Ocean, it is expected to clear out a vast majority of the instability. And then we can also take a look at our surface instability. So we can get an idea of our instability at the surface level if we don't really have a strong instability on our most unstable Cape models. Um, you can see along our warm front, which is currently impacting the western Florida or region, you can see a strong surface instability back behind the warm front in the warm sector. Even if it's not ahead of the warm front will still be able to use a lot of the instability in the warm sector. If you picture a warm front here, let me draw a little diagram so it does make a little bit more sense as to why we are seeing the warm sector be able to fuel the cold front even though the warm front's ahead of it. Over here we do have colder air and we do have that warm front coming in. Our warm front is much more gentle and isn't really as forceful as our cold front. But you can see as our warm front pushes on the cold air, you can see a lot of the air will ride up the warm front and higher up in the atmosphere. And because that lift from the warm front, that is where we will see convection because that lift. And you can see how everything is coming out from basically behind the warm front and sloping upwards and up into the atmosphere. So everything behind the warm front will be the warm sector. So all your instability will be on the western side of our warm front, and that will slope upwards and up into the atmosphere to fuel the possibility of convection. Taking a look at our pivotal weather models, I'm going to hop over to pivotal weather just so we can take a look at our temperature advection. You can see in the reds here, we are seeing quite a bit of warm temperature advection out of the south-southeast, and this is going to help with instability a little bit ahead of that warm front. Because we don't really have the best instability across this region, that warm air advection out of the south-southeast should help a lot with severe thunderstorm development, because overall we don't really have a lot of instability, so that warm air temperature advection should help with that. Taking a look at our low-level jet, you can see right around the time the low pressure system and warm front do impact the Florida Peninsula region, you can see that we do have a strong increase in our low-level jet with our low-level jet in the 700 millibars, possibly getting upwards of 50 to 60 to 50 miles per hour, which is definitely going to help with some low-level directional shear and give us just a ton of directional shear to support the possibility of a few tornadoes across this region. And then taking a look at our storm relativity, I just want to take a look at this really quickly so we can get an idea of our directional shear with our strong low-level jet. You can see around 11 p.m. where our main convection line does impact the coastal regions of Florida. We do have very strong storm relativity uh, directional shear ahead of that, with it possibly getting upwards of 600, 500, possibly up to the 700 meters squared a second squared ahead of that warm front. So we are definitely expected to see quite a bit of directional shear to support the possibility of a tornado threat. However, due to our overall lower end instability, we aren't really expected to see a crazy tornado threat as what we might have with this directional shear and more instability. We are expected to see a little bit more of a lower end tornado threat, but we still are expected to see the possibility of a few tornadoes across this region. Taking a look at our energy helicity index values, you can see that our energy helicity index values for the possibility of tornadoes is going to be a little funky to see as of right now. Um, you can see that we do have some stronger energy helicity index values back towards the cold front. However, we aren't really expected to see any convection with that. But you can see where our warm front is, which is impacting the coastal regions of Florida in where I have a set currently. You can see that we do have some fairly lower end tornado energy helicity index values behind the warm front. They're kind of a little bit more on the lower end, but they are indicative of a 5% tornado threat. And again, that warm front is going to be able to tap into a lot of the moisture and a lot of the instability in the warm sector to support the threat for severe thunderstorms, even if the vast majority of the models are indicating that we do have a better tornado threat and a better threat for severe thunderstorms behind the warm front along the cold front. We aren't really expected to see any convection along that cold front. And you can see as our main convection line does push into the Atlantic Ocean, we do have some strong energy helicity index values out in the Atlantic Ocean, with a little bit more lingering energy helicity index values whatever is left of the warm sector and along the cold front as it impacts the Florida region. But again, we aren't expected to see a tornado threat with this because this is the remnant of the cold front, and we aren't really expected to see any advection along or any convection along that line. Taking a look at our wind gusts, I want to take a look at our wind gusts so we can get an idea of how strong our damaging winds are expected to be for this region. You can see even before the main line of convection does impact the Florida Peninsula, you can see that we are having some fairly gusty winds, especially in the south, where we could see wind gusts ranging anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour, and down in the south here, anywhere from 50 to possibly even 60 miles per hour. Probably not going to get up to 60 miles per hour, but it is going to be quite strong damaging winds across this region. So definitely make sure you are strapping down your things across Florida if you know you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted. If you have anything that can blow around outside, definitely make sure you strap them down if you don't want to lose them. And you can see when that main convection line does impact the Florida region, you can see that we are having still just very strong winds. They are going to be a bit more widespread and a little bit more organized instead of the less organized, spotty, isolated strong gusts of wind. We are expected to see mostly organized and much more widespread, a strong gust of wind, upwards of 30 to 40 miles per hour. So again, definitely make sure you are strapping down anything outside that you don't want to lose. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas I covered for today, please stay weather alert. If you notice anything might have been wrong with this forecast or you'd like to make a suggestion or ask a question, please leave a comment. I do read them. Two other channels that I highly suggest you check out are One Nation Weather and Weather Watcher. The links to their descriptions are in the links to their channels are in the description. And hopefully I'll be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.